Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. That's pretty good.
Hey everybody, welcome to the webinar. I am so glad to have you guys here today. Today we're going to be talking about how to find and sell your first client with Workspaces as a service. My name is Dan Kalansky. I am with Virtual Administrator. We also have the whole team from what used to be Ingenix, is now called CloudJumper. They changed their name earlier this month in May, for those who are watching live on the broadcast. Otherwise, you'll just know them as CloudJumper. No big reason for changing their name. They just thought that it was something that would be a little bit easier to market, and that is exactly what they are doing with it. So guys, welcome on the call. We're super excited to have you here, especially a big welcome to Patrick and Max and Anthony, who all have been instrumental in making this program possible, and we are going to just step right into it. So a couple of housekeeping items. Number one, if you have questions, there is a questions box right below this video, and all you got to do is just put in your name and email address and type in your question, and we will try to answer that live on the call. This call is kind of a mix of recorded and pre-recorded information, so go ahead and just take it as it is, but we will be answering questions live. So if you have a question, punch it down below, and we will be sure to answer that for you. Let's see. I think that covers the big stuff, and so let's just go ahead and hop right in. Okay, so let's talk for a minute about who you can sell Workspaces as a service to. So one of the things that we talked about on this webinar was that I was going to give you some ideas about who you can sell Workspace as a service to. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flip over to another segment where we're going to put up a PowerPoint on the screen, and I want you to take a look at some of the different offerings that are out there. The thing I want you to be thinking about, though, as we're going through this is, number one, are they ready to outsource? Are they ready to grow their company? Are they ready to systemize? Do they understand the value of systems? This particular clientele, or are they sick of an inconsistent user experience? Do they have people that are constantly complaining about software issues on their computer? Or do they need to do any kind of major upgrades? Do they have a server that's ready to be upgraded? Do they have a is their desktops, are they aging? Do they really need a refresh of their hardware? Because those are the times when you can really swoop in and make some pretty awesome changes for them. So that is a big one. Those are some big kind of like things that you want to listen out for. And so without further ado, let's flip over to that list. I want you to check that out because there's some pretty cool niches in there. And I think a lot of it is just putting your ear to the ground and trying to pick something that you can work with. And one last thing that I'll say before we dive into the list is you want to niche down. So I'm not going to list every niche in the world, but when you look at some of these overarching categories, you can find that there are much smaller categories inside of them where you can become the expert. So we have a client who works with us who actually gave a testimonial on the last call that we were on about CloudJumper, and she said one of the coolest things. I did not know this until she was on the call, but her company is based in Phoenix, Arizona. Her customer is in Phoenix, Arizona, but we didn't find out till we were actually on the call with her that she lives in Honolulu, not Arizona, not Phoenix. She lives in Honolulu. So she's not only doing this service from another city, she's doing it from another time zone, and she's able to provide a service to clients in a completely different city because she has those expertise, and this is such a powerful solution that she is able to provide that without needing boots on the ground. So she does have people in the city that she has some affiliation with that she can get boots on the ground if she needs to, but the reality is that she doesn't need to do it. It just doesn't need to happen very often. Once they were on board, she was done. So you can actually become an expert not just in your city and in your location. You could become an expert in a specific niche of people. So instead of just targeting lawyers, or instead of just targeting accountants, you could target forensic accountants and become the IT company that helps provide IT support to forensic accountants. And then you can use a solution. You can build a package that's kind of like what we got here, and target it specifically at that particular niche. So you're niching down, making it more specific. Instead of dealing with lawyers, you could deal with tax attorneys, or you could deal with divorce attorneys, or you could deal with, you could get very specific and work with a very specific group of people. And what that does is it opens up doors for you where now you can go to trade shows, you can create advertising that speaks to that people group, and you can make your programs actually, work with those people. So I would encourage you to do that. But all that being said, I'm going to list off a bunch of niches in just a second here. And these are niches that are high dollar, high knowledge based organizations that you can take, that you can target. And so I would encourage you to target at least one of them, preferably not more than a few at a time, and just go out there and try to get people to work with those niches. So let's dive in and check it out.
Okay, guys, so let's take a look at a couple niche markets here. So there's a lot of different options for niche markets, but I'm going to give a couple generalities and we can kind of whittle down from there. So the first one on the list is lawyers. Lawyers are knowledge heavy people who are often outside of the office or may have multiple locations. Lawyers also often team up into groups of teams so they can share resources like technical resources. So they're fantastic targets for selling CloudJumper as a solution. It's a good idea to niche down inside of the lawyer niche and not necessarily just advertise to all lawyers. However, you can do what you want with that. Doctors are another good one, medical practices and things like that, accountants, bookkeeping companies, they're all fantastic. And these are kind of like the magic four for IT services in general. So I'm sure that you're already quite aware of them and may already be targeting them. Now, the one thing I will note is that CloudJumper works really well with companies that require HIPAA compliance. So, medical practices, doctors, dental practices, all those kind of niche kind of medical firms can do really well in a cloud-based environment. What's fantastic about this also is that a lot of them aren't willing to put in the effort to actually secure their own stuff. They've had to because there are laws that require them to do it. However, this really simplifies it because it's all happening on a server that's hosted in a secure data center. If there's ever any kind of data issue, then it's not going to be because there was a technological flaw, as long as they're using the service on the CloudJumper servers and not necessarily pulling files down to their local machines. Construction companies are also fantastic because they often have high-level technical expertise that are out in the field. I'm not talking about the guys that are doing the actual building. I'm talking about the foremans and the people who need to have access to plans while they're out and about. Oftentimes, there'll be people who just drive around in a truck all day and are doing some kind of construction or building or handyman type work, and they need to have a solution that can give them the full power of their computer, but they might only have a tablet or a phone with them. So this really opens that up. Financial professionals are fantastic target markets. Small business owners can be good. Small business is the one downside to small business is that oftentimes they're not in a position where they're ready to pay for technical expertise. And, I've said many times, and I will say several more times before this webinar is over, I recommend the $130 per user per month minimum, and they may not necessarily be in a place where they're ready to do that. However, it's not worth ignoring them completely. You might have to be going after companies that are a little bit larger or startups that have funding and are willing to pay for your expertise and are excited about the opportunity that you're giving them to systemize the processes in their company. HVAC, plumbing companies who have workers in the field, knowledge-based workers, they oftentimes are struggling with these guys doing their paperwork correctly or on time or all that kind of stuff. And so this really helps with internal communication, gives you a chance to really get in there and change how they talk to each other because you're giving them a tool to solidify their office beyond the four walls of the office itself. So it's really a fantastic way, a fantastic resource for these types of companies. Automation companies, programming companies, people that are doing a lot of IT-based work, but not necessarily doing heavy lifting programming. But there are a lot of companies that work with IDEs and do like C# and Python and web development, and all of those types of situations can potentially work very well with with uh, with this service. Luxury landscaping. A lot of landscaping companies don't necessarily need something in the field. However, there are many who have people who are going on site and showing plans and all that kind of stuff, and having the opportunity to just have that all synced up can be really helpful to them. Party planners and wedding and or just regular event planners also do really, really well with this. If it's just a one person shop, it may not necessarily be a good opportunity, but sometimes you'll run into companies that actually specialize in this stuff, and they have many party planners or event planners working together, much like lawyers, where they kind of group together to form a little bit of a co-op, and you could potentially get some opportunity there. Real estate brokerages. I wouldn't go after individual agents. A lot of IT people, especially smaller IT companies, will go after the individual agents. They don't have the money or desire to do this. However, the brokers do. And brokers can be a fantastic resource here, both commercial and residential. What you'll be doing is giving them an edge, especially small brokers that aren't necessarily working for one of the larger companies. Oftentimes they are more open to the idea of you giving their agents a lead, because they're trying to attract agents to their brokerage because they make more money when that happens. So you can give them a bit of a selling point for working for their company, where they're providing this virtualized workspace environment to their users, and everything is all synced up, so their real estate agents have all the tools that they need with them at all times, and all they need is an iPhone or an Android phone with them, which is great because obviously real estate agents are always in the field. Carpeting companies and other home type work companies. Again, this kind of fits in with the HVAC and plumbing type markets. And finally, home theater companies are also fantastic resources. These guys, depending on if you're in a metro area, these guys can be awesome target market. And they make a ton of money in metro areas. I know of a couple personally, and they just are so busy they can't find enough time in the day to do this stuff. So having something that simplifies their life could be very, very helpful to them. I didn't include it on here, but also there are a lot of companies. It's not so much a niche, but it's like, manufacturing companies, packing companies, organizations that have large factories and things like that, sort of out in the boonies. Especially if you're out in the boonies, it might be more worth targeting them. Where you're not necessarily inside of a metro area, or you're kind of near the edge of one. You could use this type of a service to go after those companies as well, and really help provide them with some of those, with obviously the resources that CloudJumper has. So hopefully this gives you a couple ideas. I would encourage you to really just narrow it down and pick 1 to maybe 3 to really target. You can obviously go after more than that, but I would only do a couple at a time and then move on from there, because I think that you'll find that it's very difficult to target everyone. The old adage that I've heard is that if you create something for everybody, then you've created something for nobody. So what we want to do is create something for a specific person, such as lawyers or doctors or accountants, and then go after them specifically. And then if anyone happens to fall into the net that isn't one of those, maybe they still make sense as a potential lead. But if you're targeted, then your message will make more sense to the people that you're going after. These are all companies that can potentially make quite a bit of money and can be good leads. And obviously there's plenty more, but hopefully this just gives you a head start. So let's move on.
Okay, guys, let's talk about pricing for a minute. Now, this is one of the most important things that you need to understand about selling workspaces as a service. If you are going to sell this and actually make a profit at it, you need to set some minimums. And I'm going to give you some numbers that are going to seem a little high at first, but it's one of those things that you get very used to very fast as you start to find out that there's a lot of people out there that are willing to pay these prices, and you will be able to turn a significant profit for your company with very little effort put in on your part. So What are those numbers? This might sound a little unpopular, but as of today, at the recording of this webinar, I am recommending that you do at least $130 per user per month. I wouldn't go lower. Now, can you? Yeah, you can. In fact, you're only being billed a maximum of about $40 per user per month, but that doesn't include any licensing fees. That doesn't include any hardware that you're trying to build into the program. That doesn't include any of your time. That doesn't include anything. And so you need to be out there and bidding this stuff at much higher prices than you're probably used to. And once you start getting used to that, you're going to find that it's working really well for you. So how do I know that this is doable? We actually have a client that just signed on with us who actually charges that, and he lives in the boonies. There is literally, it's like farmland where he lives. There's a couple towns near him, but for the most part, it's farm. And he is able to find clients that are willing to pay these prices, and he does a really good job. Now at Network Depot, which is our MSP, the MSP branch of Virtual Administrator here in the Washington, D.C. area, we charge those prices, and we actually do really quite well charging those prices. And what we're able to do is we actually did a webinar with the sales team at Network Depot, and what they said is that they no longer take any clients at all for less than $1,000 a month. So what that means is that they're charging $130 per user, but then if they get a 5-user client, that client's going to have to pay $1,000 regardless of what it costs per user. And what they found is that got them a much higher caliber of customer that they are able to work with. There are people that appreciate them for what they do, and it's just really a much better experience. So how can you communicate these numbers to your prospects without them feeling like, oh my gosh, sticker shock? Well, here's the easiest way to do it. When you were talking to a company, one of the things that you're going to be competing against is the idea of an in-house IT guy. And so what a lot of companies do is when they reach a certain stage of growth, or at 15, maybe 20 users, they're starting to think, hey, we need a guy internally that's able to do this work, or we need to hire a company to do it. They already know that they need this, but what they don't know is they don't really know the difference between on-site and outsourced IT. So that's really where you can come in and start making some comparisons. So when you go into an office and you say, look, for 10 users, we're going to charge you $10,000-ish a month. But when you look at the cost of that compared to bringing a guy in-house and actually doing it internally, he's going to be able to do less work, have less expertise, not be able to do the work as efficiently as I can. And because outsourced IT companies have access to tools and automation and resources that internal IT guys just don't get. They don't get paid to get that stuff. The company isn't willing to invest in all of those software and hardware and things like Nginx, and they aren't able to even access CloudJumper. Forgive me. They aren't even allowed to access CloudJumper unless they have a contract with an MSP. So what that means is that if you're charging, let's say, you have a 10-user client, I just said $10,000, but that's not true. It's actually 10-user client at $130 a user is $1,300. That is probably about a fifth, at the very least, of what it would cost for them to hire a guy full-time in-house to handle this stuff. That's a huge savings. And so what you need to do is position yourself. So what you do is you have over here, you have, I'm the MSP that's charging $1,000 a month. Actually, you're in the middle. Over here is you're not going to do anything and your stuff is going to just explode. Over here is you. I'm just charging $1,000, $1,300 a month, and you're going to get the better service than over here where you hire a guy full time and he is just not able to perform on the same level, and he's going to be costing you $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month just to have him on site. Now, that's going to cover their costs all the way up to, that's good. That salary is going to cover expenses all the way up to what, 20, 30, 40 users on, in the system. And they're still going to be paying you around the same amount that they would be if they were paying a guy internally. Now that gives them access to more capabilities because you're walking in with a solution that's going to actually help them. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit, about what it is that solution actually does to help. But all that being said, you're walking in with this solution, and an in-house IT guy just isn't going to be able to do that. He's only going to be able to keep status quo, and you're going to be able to walk in and provide them with so much more. So when it comes to pricing, set your prices higher than you think. I suffer from this a lot. It's a self-worth issue where you think, wow, they aren't going to pay this, and I would like for them to pay this. So take a look at that, and hopefully that helps you learn some more about this. All right, let's move on. Okay, now what I want to cover is the 4 major people groups that you're going to run into. When it comes to dealing with benefits, you need to be able to communicate effectively to the person that you're talking to. So what we want to do is dive in and talk about the 4 different people groups that you're going to run into. And those people groups are the CEO or the business owner, the HR department, the technical contact for the company, CIO, CTO, and then finally the employees of whatever company that it is that you're trying to sell to. Your messaging is going to change depending on which of these 4 groups that you're talking to, and we're going to dive in and talk about exactly what benefits you are able to advertise to these 4 people groups and why it is important to them. This is really the meat of this webinar. I think this is the most important thing, because when you dive in and you're out there in the field and you're talking to people, you need to be able to identify who you're talking to, why what it is that we're offering here is important, and then finally you need to tailor it so that they understand it from their point of view, right? Because these people are coming at it from, I heard someone say online once, everyone is the hero in their own story. You're not the hero in their story. They're the hero in their story. And so they need to go on that journey and experience the benefit for themselves. And so you need to speak to the problems that they're having, not the problems that you're solving, the problems that they're having, and be able to communicate that. So we're going to dive right in and cover that right now.
All right, guys, we're going to jump in and talk about the 4 different prospects that you're going to talk to inside of one of these companies. As I already mentioned, this is kind of the meat and potatoes of this webinar. So the first one is the CEO/business owner. And the CEO/business owner is really interested in growing the company. That means that he's interested in opening new markets. He's interested in tackling new offices. He's interested in simplifying the IT expense expectations on their company. That means that he's confused by complicated billing plans, and he is really more interested, and I'm saying he, but it could be a he or a she, obviously. The CEO is really more interested in trying to make sure that he can very quickly in his brain put together a plan for growth for the company. And he's also interested in automation and process creation. CEOs and entrepreneurs in general are all about processes because they understand that process is what grows a company. And if you have a solid process that works and you can repeat it, then you're being successful. IT is one of those things that just confuses the hell out of them sometimes. Excuse my French, but what it's annoying to them because it's very difficult to systemize something that's so constantly changing. So getting them on a program like Cloud Jumper gives them the opportunity to create that base level process so they know here's what it costs to bring on a new employee. Here's what the experience is going to be like. It's going to be consistent for a long period of time, and they're going to do well. And the employees are going to be happy, and it's going to simplify a lot of things. It's also going to give you the opportunity to grow your company rapidly. So if you happen to get that massive growth that you're targeting and opening in new markets and creating new offices and things like that, it's going to give them that opportunity. So this is really the kind of stuff that you want to talk about And really, I mean, the CEO's adage is like, hey, if you aren't growing, then you're diminishing. And so what we need to do is really target that, show them how this is going to grow their business, show them how this is going to change things for them. And so that's what I want you to be talking about when you're talking to the business owner or the CEO. The next one is the CIO or CTO, Chief Information Officer or Technology Officer. This person is different than the CEO because really they're going to be a more technical person generally, not always, but generally. They're going to be a more technical type contact. They're interested in information security. So when you say all you have to do is upload all of your proprietary information to my server, they're gonna flinch. It's not going to be the most welcome news to them. So the thing that you need to be talking about with them is more about the security of the setup, how this is going to change their company's security to a new level. You're going to give them the opportunity to kind of relieve a little bit of the responsibility for that information that they're holding on to, because they're going to be placed onto servers inside of data centers. And I would encourage you to say, hey, we host these servers inside of Google or Artisan or, basically top level data centers that meet many certification standards. And we can go into more detail on those at a later time. But it's all the majors, right? They hit all the majors. They're also, I've mentioned already that they work with HIPAA compliance and they work with many other compliances as well. So the information is secure. Not only that, but if you set up your company a certain way, you'll be able to kind of control access a little bit and be able to show them it's like, look, you guys still have control. Now, the CIO and CTO are also interested in control. It's really tough to tell, especially a technical contact. Now, it might be that this guy's reached a point in his career where he doesn't feel threatened by another IT company coming in to do the work for them. And he's, this person is more interested in just getting it done. But a lot of people can feel very threatened by an external IT service coming in and making changes to the way that they do things. So you need to show them that they still have control. CloudJumper has a complete program that they've put together that allows you to self-administrate, basically. They don't give you access to the server. You as the MSP will have access to the server, but these people will be able to create users, make changes to files and folders, and basically anything that you would do inside of the web console, they can do themselves if they want to, and if you would like to give them that control. So, if you're bumping into someone and they're saying, I really would rather just be able to do it myself, you can be like, look, we're going to provide this service. We're going to give you the resources that you need from our company to grow as a company. But if you are in a situation where you really would rather just do it yourself, you have that option also. I've used this sales tool to great effect selling ironically web development services. And oftentimes when I'm selling to a client, they're like, well, hey, I'm glad that you can do the work for me, but I want to be able to do it myself sometimes too. And it's like, look, I'll give you the option. And just being open and free about that can help relieve some of that pressure on these guys who are thinking that they really want control of this setup, but they don't necessarily want it. They just don't want to give it up. They're also interested in automation. The CEO is putting pressure on them to make their resources more lean and mean. And so you offering them, an automation for setting up new employees, managing file access and things like that, simplifying all that stuff, putting all their files into one place, really will help them out in the long run. And so that's something that you can also talk to them about. The third group, and here we go. We have I wrote little quotes for these guys, but basically, the mantra for these guys is like, hey, I don't want to have to worry about anything bad happening to our data. That's really this is a tagline you're going to hear from these guys. They're going to have difficulty trusting you, so it's important to establish that trust, have the answers to those questions. And the answers are, hey, they're in top tier data centers. Your data isn't in one of those top tier data centers now, most likely. And if you're hosting with a cloud service, then who knows who has access to that data. So it's like a completely different environment. The third group is human resources and managers. These guys are interested in making their job easier. So, they're herding cats, they're herding the employees, and setting up employees, downcycling employees. Is that the word for it? Employees who have quit or been fired, making sure that they're removed from the system without any ability to cause harm to the company is an important task to these guys. Also, just the day to day. An employee is out of the office because they have a sick kid, or maternity leave, or all of those kind of situations that come up. Since you can provide an instant remote working environment to these people, it's going to make human resources job easier, because it's going to allow the employees to do things like working vacations. Let's say a good example was my father suffered a heart attack several years ago, and I had to be I didn't have to, but I was out. I wasn't going to stay in the office. I left and I went to the hospital and was there. We were there for a full week, and he made a full recovery. He's healthier than I am now, but I wasn't going to stay in the office. Now, when I was at the hospital, I really wasn't doing much of anything. I didn't have a lot of opportunity to see him, so I was sitting in a waiting room a lot of the time. And if I had a Workspace as a service solution, I probably would have just flipped my laptop out. I did have my laptop with me, except I was browsing forums instead of doing any real work. I could have just flipped it out and signed on and answered a couple emails, or made some changes to things, or I had projects that I was working on at the time, and a lot of that stuff just kind of ground to a halt because I wasn't really into what I was doing. I was focused on other stuff, and I wasn't in the office anymore. So a Workspace as a service solution would have given me the ability to do kind of a working out of the office vacation time, and it would have kept the business from grinding to a halt, which we may do. Obviously, everyone always does, but we want to relieve that pressure and make their job easier. And they're also interested in happy employees, and this kind of ties in with the next people group, which is the employees, the next group that you would end up talking to, and you're really freeing them up. So we'll talk about that in a minute. They're also trying to get the maximum effort from their employees, and employees can work better if they have access to everything from anywhere. So I can't tell you the number of times where an employee of a company is able to be more productive if they can just make a quick change at 10 o'clock at night, or if there's something happening over the weekend and they can just hop on real quick and update a PDF document and send it out. There's just a lot of freedom that comes in that scenario. So that can really help with human resources, make their job easier. So yeah, they want to make sure that their people are happy and productive is the mantra for human resources, or managers in general. The final group that you're going to talk to is the employees themselves. The employees are interested in not feeling chained to their desk anymore. Especially the newer millennial generation. If you tell them that they have to be at their desk every day, that's going to hurt. They're going to have difficulty accepting that. So what you do is you give them the ability to not necessarily have to be at their desk anymore. And again, you got to be careful how you word this, because you don't want to start a revolt inside the company. But when you're talking to HR, to the CEO or the business owner or whoever it is, you could say, it's like, look, you can make the employees in your company happier by just giving them the option where they don't necessarily have to be in the office all the time, even though it's still company policy that they're there. If they want to take a day to work from home because they're just not 100% into it, they could still get their work done. And what'll happen is that the pressure of having to be in the office every day will really, a little bit of pressure will come off, and they'll breathe a little bit. The employees will breathe a little bit, which will make them more productive and pretty much happier and just better employees in general. They're obviously interested in enjoying life more, which fits into that as well. And they want to know that they're being taken care of. So, you need to show the employees, if you have the opportunity to talk to them, which usually won't happen till after you actually sell the company. It depends on the situation, but often it won't happen until after you've already made a sale. But you might be in a training situation and they want to know that they're being taken care of. So your communication to the employees is probably going to be very similar to what you already do, which is just giving them the opportunity to be able to contact you directly, giving them a method to be able to be taken care of. So if they have a problem or a question or anything like that, you'll be able to provide that to them. So the kind of the quote for them is, hey, I want to be able to enjoy my work and not feel a slave to the office. So they shouldn't feel like they're enslaved, and CloudJumper really gives them the opportunity to live life that way. It's like we're all in the rat race together, but at least we can enjoy life while we're doing it, right? So that is the 4 different people groups. So I think with that, we're going to move on to the next section, and so I will see you there.
Okay, so let's talk about the actual process of finding and closing a client. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of tips. These are things that have helped me in my own efforts of doing sales just in general, but we're going to try and focus this towards what it will be like for you. So I'm going to give you the overview, and then we're going to jump in and get a little bit more detailed. Now, the overview is like this. What you want to do is create a couple of services that you give out ahead of trying to deliver this product. So we already talked about pricing and how I already said that you want to be charging for MSP 4.0 type services, desktop as a service, workspace as a service. What you want to be charging is at least $130 per user per month. Now, it's not easy to convince a company that they need to pay that kind of money right up front. So you need to be able to walk in there with confidence and get them on board with your plan and your vision for what their company should run like. How does that happen? That's the transition that we need to walk them through. So let's just jump right in. So the very first thing that you need to have is what's called a lead magnet. Now, a lead magnet is becoming more and more common for people who do digital marketing or internet marketing or really any kind of marketing. A lead magnet is a give first, ask later types setup, basically. A lot of internet marketers use it in the sense that they offer things like free white papers and free documents and free information. I want to encourage you to give out something that has some real significant value to it. And it could be information based, but what you want to do is not just give away junk. A lot of people just give away white noise, and it really doesn't do anything for them. It doesn't really help anyone. So in a minute, we're going to go over a couple of really good lead magnet ideas. I'm just going to bullet point a bunch of them for you, and hopefully you'll be able to take a couple of those and maybe turn them into something that you can actually use in your company on a day-to-day basis. That being said, the idea behind the lead magnet is that you are going to show them how to do something. You're going to give them a list or a checklist of things that they can work through or information that is helpful to them. You may also give them some kind of free service up front that might get them interested in what it is that you want to do. The purpose of a lead magnet is to show them that they actually have a need for your product. So we talked a little bit about the 4 different groups of people. You're probably going to want to target either the CIO, CTO, or CEO of the company. Targeting some of the other groups of people probably isn't going to be something that you're going to be able to do right away. You're just going to have to change your wording when you meet those people during the course of becoming their IT company. The lead magnet that you want to be delivering to them is something that's going to really speak to those people. So, we already talked about how the CEO is interested in business processes and interested in growing their company and interested in making their company better. Interested in expanding to new locations or these are things that the CEO is interested in tackling new markets. So what you want to do is deliver a lead magnet that speaks to those things that they're interested in. So we're not necessarily giving away a document that talks about security in the cloud. That's been done. You could give away a document like that also, but what I would encourage you to do is try to do something a little bit different, stand out from the crowd. Give away something like the IT checklist of things you need to do when opening a new office. And give it away. It's something that's going to get them interested in you. So what happens is when you walk into a new prospect and you're talking to a new prospect and you're just chatting with them and trying to see where they're up to, what they're thinking about, and they say, yeah, I've been thinking about I'm a doctor's office. I've been thinking about opening up in a new city. It'd be kind of neat. I'd like the extra clientele. We've been doing pretty well at our current location, blah, blah, blah. You say, hey, you know what? I have just the thing for you. I want to give you this PDF that I put together, and it's going to show you everything that you need to know about opening up in a new city. And that's it. I mean, it's really that simple. And you'll find that instead, the conversation is so much different than if you just walked in there and said, hey, buy my stuff, which is what a lot of IT companies do. They just hang up their shingle and hope that someone's going to buy all of their stuff and just move on from there, and they just kind of waddle along without necessarily making any real progress trying to get out there and get sales. So I would encourage you to just take a little bit of time, couple of hours, sit down and come up with a short document, maybe a page, 2-3 pages tops, of some important information. I'm going to give you a couple of ideas in just a minute. So let's cover that in a minute. I'm going to go over the whole thing right now. So the next thing that you need to do is come up with what's called a Tripwire Offer. Now, a Tripwire Offer is really, really cool. This is a psychological concept. If someone pays you money, you are now their vendor. If a business pays you money, you are now their vendor. So you want to make sure that a business is paying you money. Now, they're going to trust you a whole lot more with that $130, $140, $150 per user per month if they already know that they can give you money and you'll give them a service in return. And they already know about the quality of your customer service. They already know that you're a company that delivers on what they say they're going to deliver on. And they already feel like you've blown them away with value. So if you have a service that's for $7, $10, $20, $30, $40, give or take, something like that, just a one-off type product or service that you can deliver to them that gets them, and then you just blow them out of the water. You just give them one of the coolest things that they could possibly ask for. Then they will say, wow, this guy knows what he's doing. Now, we actually do something like that. We have a free trial, so you don't actually have to pay for it. But when people come onto our Go Manage program, they get it for free. And CloudJumper just made the same change where they're giving away between 2 weeks and 5 weeks of free service of CloudJumper as well. So when you hop on, you get a chance to actually try it out and get used to the idea without necessarily having to lay out any cash. That gives people a chance to get used to it, and then they start to think of you as a vendor, as opposed to just thinking of you as some guy that just has a product to sell. And you want them to make that transition. Now, when money actually changes hands, that's when the magic starts happening. So maybe what you want to do is actually have a second piece of information. So if you think about this, you sit down, and I'm going to give you a couple of ideas in just a few minutes. You sit down and you think, wow, I've got this really cool idea. Let's split it in half, and we're going to give the first half as a freebie, which will be really good information. And then we're going to give the second half as a paid upgrade, where it's like, hey, if you really like this document, we actually have a $5 extended edition or a $5 related document that can really take you to the next level. And just check it out. It's for $5. What's the worst that could happen? And as soon as they whip out their wallet, all of a sudden, now you are the vendor. And so the relationship changes. And instead of having a relationship with a prospect, you now have a relationship with a customer. It's a lot easier to upsell them into a service such as Workspace as a service. That being said, not everyone's obviously going to want to make that transition, but it gives you a much stronger positioning than you would be if you're just coming in cold and trying to convince them that they need to pay you money right away. I am not saying to give your services away for cheap or free, ever. What I am saying is to come up with an introductory service or product or something that you can sell them for a low dollar amount so that they can experience what it means to be your customer. And so this is kind of like a service service sale. When you're not really selling them the product or the thing that you're trying to sell them, you're selling them what it feels like to be your customer. And if you do a good job there, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to move on to the next level. So finally, after that, you can push them up to your core offer, which in this case would be desktop as a service, which, as I've already said, I would recommend pricing at least $100, $130 per user per month, and you can get them on board with that. So that's the process that I would go through. Let's go ahead and flip over. I'm going to give a couple of ideas. I'm going to bullet point them so that you can actually see them and write them down, and then we'll go from there. So once again, thank you. We'll move it on.
Okay, guys, here's a little swipe file of some Tripwire and lead magnet ideas, and I just kind of put them all into one pool. You can mix and match or split them up or come up with some of your own stuff, but I wanted to get the creative juices flowing here for some things that you could potentially give away, information-based products that you could potentially give away or sell for a low dollar amount to get people excited about working with your company. So here we go. It's the Cloud Jumper, lead magnet, and Tripwire ideas. So the first one I got here is the complete guide to upgrading your office computers. This could be a PDF document or a checklist to give to companies that are interested in moving to the next tier technologically. Going to the cloud while avoiding Google Apps. There are many companies out there that aren't interested in working with Google Apps, but they are interested in the idea of working in the cloud, and this might be something that would trigger them to ask questions, right? So you could write a small document that talks about the idea of workspaces as a service and how that allows companies to move into the cloud without necessarily being beholden to the almighty Google, and it would provide some potential opportunity there. How to migrate off of aging Office. Whoops, typo there. How to migrate off of aging Microsoft servers. You can skip the Office. One of the trigger words for bringing in bringing in Cloud Jumper is to that was an audio typo right there. One of the trigger words for bringing in Cloud Jumper is replacing old Microsoft like SBS servers or Microsoft Server 2003 edition or whatever it is. There's a lot of companies out there that still have these setups and they've been working fine for many years, but maybe they're on the fritz now, or they realize that it's getting old, but they don't really know what to move to. And so, creating a guide or a checklist or a small document that they could use either for free or as a for free or as a another resource as a small paid resource would be able to help them move forward in that. A guide to employee wellness from an IT organization, that'd be kind of a fun take on talking about that fourth group, the employees, and how you can help employees feel healthier and feel better about life and work better and work harder. You can easily put together a guide on that and kind of center it around the idea of workspaces as a service. 5 ways your computers are letting you down can really harp on the idea of, non-collaborative computers, giving users administrator credentials is a bad idea, those kind of things, and pushing them into the cloud can be a great, this could be a great document to lead people down that road. And I'm just making up numbers here. This is a swipe file, so you can feel free to steal these headlines and use them or make modifications to them as you like. 7 things you probably didn't know about cloud computing would probably be a fun thing to give away, especially if you're going to trade shows or things like that. You could, this is, we're trying to come up with headlines that will pique people's interest and might get them more interested in more excited about what it is that you're talking about. So this would be this would probably be better as a lead magnet than a Tripwire. I don't think anyone's going to pay for that, but they would probably at least read the headlines inside. They would try to see what those 7 things are if you put it out there. So it's a good article. How to hire remote employees. This could be a fantastic way to work out a workspace as a service solution. So you basically just write the guide step by step, how to hire a remote employee and what's required to do that. And you can just center it around workspace as a service. So you just get it out there, you show people how it's done, and then they will hire you when it's time for them to do it. So that's a fantastic way to tackle this market. Also, I just wrote this as 4 security no-nos for remote organizations. So, it could be 4 or whatever, 3 or whatever, but, what you're trying to do is really harp on the idea of don't store your data locally, store your data in these data centers. That's where it's going to be taken care of. Or it could be, control access to the data so that, angry ex-employees don't have access to it, or, those kind of things. And then finally, the last one that I have here is the technical guide to incorporating outsourced employees in your organization. So this is kind of the same tack as this one up here, how to hire remote employees. This one is really going to be about like talking to companies that are thinking, hey, I might be interested in this, in outsourcing. It's just a different key phrase, right? Like outsourcing and remote employees. They're basically the same thing, but they're different words. So they might trigger different people. Some people might be thinking about outsourcing to other countries or overseas. And you can use, CloudJumper as a resource to putting together a program like that. So you could create a small guide or again, a checklist or something like that around this topic to get people interested. So hopefully this kind of got the juices flowing a little bit, and we're gonna move forward a little bit. But if you have questions about this, feel free to type them into the chat box below, and we'll go from there.
Hey, I want to thank you for being on the call today. I hope that this information was really helpful to you. We are going to flip over to a Q&A section, so myself and the CloudJumper people are going to be live on the call to answer any questions that you might have. Obviously, you might have some questions about CloudJumper itself, and I would encourage you to ask those questions now if you have them, or if you have questions about the material today, that would be fantastic. If you really enjoyed something about this webinar, we're trying to do something a little bit different. I'm trying to share some information with you that I haven't really, we've never really featured at Virtual Administrator. This is something that's new and a little outside of our comfort zone, that we don't teach this stuff very often. If this was really helpful to you, it would mean the world to me if you would just type in the questions box and down underneath the video here, and just tell me what it was that you really enjoyed, and tell me what if there were any eye-opening moments or anything that really changed your view of how to get out there and sell this. If you're still feeling stuck, type it in, because and ask the question, where did I lose you? Because I want to make sure that I can answer those questions for you and get you moving forward, because the way we've structured Virtual Administrator, the way that we've structured our program with CloudJumper, is that we win when you win. So if you're not out there and you're not making sales, we're not eating either. So it's important to me to make sure that you are being successful. And it's important to me to make sure that you have everything that you need to be able to get out there and go make your first sale. So with that being said, we're going to flip over to the Q&A. And thank you very much for being on the call. And again, thank you to the CloudJumper people for being on the call as well. Even though they didn't necessarily participate this time in the presentation, they will be here for the Q&A section, and we will talk with them in just a few minutes. So thank you very much, and thanks for being on the webinar.
All right. So we're flipping over to a live Q&A section now. If you guys have any questions, feel free to punch them in. I know most everyone's still on the call, which is fantastic. Guys, you there? Genix people or CloudJumper people? Sorry.
Yes.
All right. So we have Anthony, Max, Patrick. We also have someone who's a little bit newer to the crew, although he's been with CloudJumper for quite a while, is Andrew Rogers, and you'll probably be seeing a little bit more of him around as we dive right in. I did get a couple of questions, and so I thought maybe we would just start knocking them out. And for those who want to stay on the call, one thing I do want to ask. Oh, hey, Max, the echo is because you're still listening to you got to mute the broadcast. There you go. I do want to ask, I posted up a bunch of those things as swipe files. Would you guys be interested in if I actually created some of them as resources for you to go out and make those sales? If that's something that would be interesting to you, if that's something that you think you might use, then I might actually go ahead and do that. So if there was one of those that actually stuck out to you and you thought, hey, this is kind of cool, or if you had an idea, then I think that would be, I think that would be a cool resource. So one of the first questions I got was actually right towards the beginning of the webinar. Elton asked, he was asking, does that $130 per user per month, does that include any service that's to be done on their local machines, or is that just for the CloudJumper solution? So Patrick, do you want to speak to that at all? Do you have any thoughts on that? Is that worth bringing up?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we typically see, and each MSP really does it a little bit differently, but for the most part, we see all folks just offering a full turnkey, kind of all-you-can-eat package for their end user groups. And speaking to your point of that 130 mark, anywhere really between 130 and 150 is a really nice spot to be. Especially when you're offering that full turnkey service. They really get a lot of bang for their buck, and it's something that they can expect month over month, so there's no more wildly fluctuating IT costs. That's one of the big benefits of moving to the cloud, is knowing what your IT costs are going to be each and every month.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think we were typing back and forth a little bit on the while the webinar itself was running, and Max also mentioned that some people are charging all the way up to $200 a month per user. So people see this and they gasp at it, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money, $200 per month for every user that you bring onto the system. But the reality is that you're providing them with a turnkey solution, right? And so it's complete. And so really what you're doing is you're capping the high end of what they're spending on their IT expenses, and so they don't have to worry as much about what they're spending. They just know it's very predictable. And as I mentioned, especially to CEOs and stuff, that's a regular thing. I am getting whooped here.
Yeah, and Dan, something to add to that too, there's a lot of hidden costs with that on-prem server. So a lot of folks don't take into account the smaller stuff that really starts adding up, the cooling of that server room. How redundant are those? Are you paying separately for backup? Are you paying separately for the full support? So there's a lot of kind of add-ons that, although on the surface sometimes it might look like that on-prem solution is more cost-effective, you start really comparing apples to apples, especially where our price points are at the $40 to start. Cloud wins almost every time.
Yeah. Hey, Dan was saying yes to the swipe file. Dan, did you was there any of those that particularly stuck out to you? Were there any of those that particularly stuck out as titles that you would find particularly interesting? Or was it just anything in general that you would like to have as a toolkit? One thing also that Max is mentioning here is that I'm going to stop saying Nginx eventually. You guys got me so on board with saying that, and then we switched names. So we got to get back to saying CloudJumper now. But CloudJumper put together a complete marketing toolkit. So if you guys are interested in that, here's how you get it. You have to be signed up with them, which means that you go, hang on, let me go ahead and I'll throw up the URL here. Throw it up. There we go. You go to cloudjumper.com/VA. If you haven't done this already, basically what you're doing is you're just setting up an account with CloudJumper. They ask for your name and email and all that kind of stuff. They do ask for a credit card, but they will not bill you until you actually make a sale or you set up NFR seats. And you got to go there and get signed up. And if you do that today, then we will send that to you. If you're already on the call and you've already signed up and you've already done that, then you just need to email myself or Patrick, or you already know how to get a hold of us, and we will send it to you directly. the marketing toolkit just kind of has some summaries for you. Some of it is for you specifically, so you can help build this stuff out. You can help understand, what your expenses are going to be and things like that. We also did a complete webinar on that. That was our previous webinar. And if you would like more information on that, you can punch it into the questions box below or shoot me an email. But that marketing toolkit can be, has some very helpful information.
Yeah, and Dan, it's also fully rebranded too. So if anyone on the call has all of our old Nginx stuff, and I mean, pricing didn't change. So it's just really all updated sales marketing materials, the quote tools updated. It's all the look and feel of CloudJumper rather than Nginx. And it's all available on that link. So no more kind of piecemealing the PDFs. So
awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's see here. Got a couple more questions in. We got a bunch of people saying thank you. Thank you, guys. I'm glad that you guys liked it. I'm glad that it was informative. I felt like I was leaving so much out. I mean, this could be how to find and close your first Workspace client. Your first Workspace as a service client could be a 12-hour course. I mean, we could go into all the details on how to do, I'll just give you a couple of the highlights of what I left out, because this might give you some ideas to research further. Where to find these guys. One of the coolest ways that you can advertise today is through social media marketing. And I'm not talking about starting up a Facebook page. I'm talking about starting up a getting into paid advertising on Facebook and on Twitter and on some of these other social media networks. You can go out there, you can create paid advertising, send people to your lead magnet, which I already talked about in the webinar, and start building up a list of leads that way. It is super easy to make this stuff work, and there's tons and tons of training out there, and I would really encourage you to start looking into it. People spend at Network Depot, we spend about $5,000 a month on advertising because we've ramped it up on paid ads, especially through Google AdWords and stuff like that. But what's amazing is that Network Depot closed 10 times that in monthly recurring revenue last year because they were getting these constant stream of leads in. So it sounds like this big number. It's like, wow, I'm spending a lot on advertising, but at the same time, you're closing business and getting business in the door. So, I tried to give you guys the head start of how do I put together the message? So when I go out there and I'm talking to these people, I can do that. But the next step after this is to start going into finding those resources. So what you would do is you would target those niches. You would find let's say you would go into Facebook, into their ad manager, and you would take your lead magnet and you would get them to give you a name and email address in exchange for that, and then you would pay for an ad that would target, let's say, tax attorneys in your local area, and you can niche it down that far. Facebook knows all of this stuff, or you can do it through LinkedIn, or you can do it through Twitter, or it's not just Facebook, but they all have these tools now where you can niche it all the way down and send them there and start collecting leads. And then it just becomes a matter of picking up the phone and calling people. And now you're no longer talking to cold leads. These are people that actually know who you are now. They've seen your name, they've heard of you. It's not just some random guy that you met on the street. And so you're able to build basically a sales funnel where you just throw people in the top and clients come out the bottom. And I said from the beginning, working with CloudJumper, your organization is going to make a shift from being an IT organization more to being a sales organization, because CloudJumper, they're removing so much of the effort from the day-to-day work that you're doing. A lot of your tickets are going to go away, and really the number one ticket you're going to get is just password resets if someone forgets their password. And so you're going to be able to invest a lot more time and effort into going out and getting new clients. And so that's one of the things that you're going to be able to do here. Obviously there's other places you can market as well. Local networking groups can be great. I find that IT organizations and web developers make really good power teams, so you can go out there and talk to those guys. And yeah, so I'll get off my soapbox now. Let's see.
Hey, Dan, we just got our first sign up here, so I'll go ahead and start sending off that marketing toolkit kind of as they sign up here.
Awesome.
Yep.
I see too. Excellent. Hey, James. Welcome to the Cloud Jumper team. All right, I think that was the big stuff. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to type them in. We set aside another about 15 minutes or so to answer any questions that hop in. But that was the big stuff. I feel like I covered so much ground. It's ridiculous. Is there anything that you guys would like to add, Patrick or Anthony or Andrew or Max?
I think you pretty much well said it there on the webinar. I just want to reinforce that we are here as a resource for all of you folks. So, I'm really passionate about the front end sales of things and helping with go-to-market strategy and pricing deals, overcoming common objections. We hear these objections all day, every day. So if you're ever questioning about what you should charge or just even running ideas by us, shoot me an email, text, give me a call. I'm available on multiple platforms at this point, but definitely use us as a resource and certainly utilize Dan over at VA. He's put a lot of work and his heart and soul into this stuff, and he's got a lot of good content on the site. So keep up the good work, everyone.
Awesome. Yeah, actually, just to extend on that, if you guys are especially if you're doing email chains with people and they're sending you back kind of hemming and hawing about things, you can CC us on the email or just send it over to us, and we might be able to help you guys out with just with some responses. We're not going to talk to your clients directly, but we could we could provide you some extra resources there. Let's see. John, I'll make sure that you get that marketing toolkit. We'll send that along. So awesome. Okay. Well, I think that covers it for now. Guys, thank you so much for being on the call. Have a great weekend. Happy Memorial Day weekend. It's birthday month in my family. I have a birthday on the 24th, so mine just passed. My brother is turning 29 tomorrow, and my wife will be turning 21 again on Sunday. So it's like all birthdays all the time right now. But hopefully everyone has a good Memorial Day weekend. And I think that about does it. Anything you guys nothing else to add, right?
No, thanks a lot, Dan.
Fantastic. All right, cool.
Appreciate it, Dan. Thank you.
Have a great weekend, guys.
Yep. Bye.
All right, bye.